Exclusive contract from Feilu Novel Network Novel. Siheyuan. Let you be the factory director. You run a military factory. In 5 years, Lin Lunan returned from Mao Xiong's home country and was unexpectedly arranged by the leader to become the factory director of the Hongxing steel rolling plant. Even more unexpectedly, he was arranged to be placed in the courtyard of the poultry house. This is the best and worst era. Lin Lunan, who was full of ambition, didn't have the heart to deal with those beasts. He just wants to develop technology and change flower growers. However, those beasts somehow stuck up. Su Damao. Lin Lunan, you snatched my wife, and we are at odds. Lu Xiao'e. Director Lin, do you want a wife? If you want a wife, I'll give it to myself. Qinhuai Ru said, factory director, if my man dies, I don't want to compensate, I just. Qinhuai Ru is affectionate and tender, Lin Lunan sneered. Everyone go away, women will only affect my speed in researching missiles. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Returning from the Mao Xiong family and assuming the position of factory director. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the early spring of the fifth year, there was still a hint of coolness in the suburbs of Yanjing. Outside the recently completed Red Star steel rolling plant, Director Li Xinmin asked the cultural and artistic propaganda team in the factory to wait at the door before dawn. He and the management in the factory only came a little late. A red banner hung high at the factory entrance. It is written in big characters. Li Xinmin and all colleagues at Hongxing steel rolling plant welcomed the factory director to take office. Seeing this banner, several people beside Li Xinmin felt disdainful in their hearts. Even before anyone arrived, Li Xinmin's face wore flattery. A few days ago, I didn't know who it was. When I found out I wasn't the factory manager, my gloomy face was about to squeeze out water. Later, it was heard that the factory director was directly assigned by the upper level of the organization. Li Xinmin praised him for his flexibility and changed his face. Someone has arrived. I don't know who shouted. Li Xinmin immediately shook his spirits and shouted at the propaganda team. Pay attention to everyone. If anyone makes a mistake later, I'll make it difficult for you to walk around. Although the members of the propaganda team were dissatisfied with Li Xinmin's arrogance, but they also want to show their face in front of the factory director. Li Xinmin raised his hand slightly, looking at the figure approaching not far away. The corners of my mouth are almost rising to the base of my ears. It's hard to guess whether this smile is genuine or fake. A person is indeed walking on the main road not far away. In his early 20s, he was wearing a black jacket and carrying a travel bag. In this era, it is difficult to find a second one dressed like this on the street. His name is Lin Lunan. He just returned from Mao Xiong's house. That's right, he was the first director of the Red Star steel rolling plant. Lin Lunan never expected that the leaders above would arrange for him to become the director of the steel rolling mill. Before returning to his home country, he once said that if possible, he would like to go to Huajun industry in the 3 eastern provinces. But Leader Wu told him that the steel rolling mill needed him. After crossing over for the first time, Lin Lunan was already thrilled to see his idol. With the highly infectious deception, of this idol, Lin Lunan inexplicably agreed. Then, he was driven back to his home country by Leader Wu. 5 years ago, when Lin Lunan crossed this world, he was caught in the war between Yingjiang and Beibang. Although Lin Lunan was already in his 30s in his past life, he still felt passionate in this era. He went to apply for a name, but as he was not old enough, he was rejected. At that moment, he met the legendary Max Level Marshal. It's the eagle saw smoking a pipe, the one who can't go home on Christmas. Then, with a fierce and spirited demeanor, the eagle sauce cried for its father and called for its mother. 3 years ago, he returned from the North Pole because Lin Lunan showed an understanding of artillery. I was arranged to go to Mao Xiong's house. Lin Lunan originally didn't want to go, but he was already a company commander at that time. I still wanted to wait for the 55-year award, but what Lin Lunan didn't expect was that at this time, he awakened his golden finger. World Technology Tree. The requirement to activate the golden finger is for him to study at the Mao Xiong family for 3 years. What surprised Lin Lunan even more was that before he left, Leader Wu brought him a military rank, still a lieutenant. The title was supposed to be conferred in 5 years, but it was unexpectedly advanced. Speaking of which, Lin Lunan finally remembered that the victory in supporting the Northern Bang's battle against Eagle Sauce had been advanced by a year. Lin Lunan finally realized that this era was very likely different from the one he knew, that is to say, this world is a parallel world, not the history it recognizes. Lin Lunan was also in a hurry to return to his home country. This time, he also came back with the task of the system and leadership Wu. Li Xinmin is eagerly preparing to welcome the new factory director, but when he saw Lin Lunan, his smile stiffened instantly. Is this person in their 20s the factory director? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Comrade, who are you? What are you doing here? A workshop director next to Li Xinmin asked. He didn't have any ill intentions. He greeted Li Xinmin in front of him. I am still worried that Li Xinmin will make things difficult for him. Oh, I'm here to report. Lin Lunan gave a faint smile, looking at the layout at the factory entrance. Lin Lunan shook his head to himself. It turns out that formalism has existed since this era. Are you here to report? Li Xinmin scrutinized Lin Lunan. He snorted heavily from his nose, feeling dissatisfied in his heart. He felt that Lin Lunan was a person with no vision. Can't you tell that they're here today to welcome important people? Li Xinmin only received that there will be a factory director coming today, but I don't know the specific information about this factory director. Lin Lunan shook his head with a smirk. Just as he was about to take out his ID, he was driven to the side by Li Xinmin. We'll talk about your matter later. Didn't you see that we still have something important to attend to? Li Xinmin is waiting for Lin Lunan. Lin Lunan shook his head helplessly, looking at the banner hanging at the door. At first, he also felt that he was too young to be a factory director, but the leader above made him not care about his age, thinking about which one of them was not in their early 20s or 18 or 19 years old. It's getting late, why haven't you come yet? The people waiting at the door are all anxious, and Li Xinmin is also worried. This can't be something that happened on the way, can it? At this moment, smoke and dust stirred up in the distance, and Li Xinmin and others showed happy smiles on their faces, shouting this, here it is. But when the distant car approached, Li Xinmin and others looked surprised. This truck is actually a military vehicle. When a soldier with 2 bars and 1 star on his shoulder stepped off the military vehicle, Li Xinmin was even more surprised. Is it difficult to say that the new factory director is from the military? Li Xinmin and others were about to go up to greet him when the major came straight to Lin Nan Road and saluted. Hello, Lin Nan Road informed me that I was ordered to meet you, but I didn't expect you to come directly. Lin Nan Road was unaware that the organization had arranged for someone to come over. He got off the train from the station and came straight over, both sides just missed it. At this moment, Li Xinmin's heart suddenly thumped on the side. Who is this young man? He is so stylish that even a major has to salute him. Lin Lunan turned around and looked at Li Xinmin with a faint smile. Hello, my name is Lin Lunan and I am the incoming factory director. Upon hearing these words, Li Xinmin's legs immediately became weak and he looked at Lin Lunan in shock. At this moment, the drummer in the propaganda team was taken aback and instinctively struck the drum. The sudden sound scared Li Xinmin and he almost fell to the ground. Lin Lunan shook his head with a smirk. Turning around, he took out a document from his backpack and handed it to the major. This is what you're taking with you. My task has been completed. The major solemnly took the document from Lin Lunan's hand. I saluted him. Confirm receipt. Meanwhile, in Lin Lunan's mind, a voice also rang out. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the beginner task, submitting it to the country, and officially lighting up the world technology tree. Please go to the technology tree to receive rewards. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Type 56 Automatic Rifle Magic Modification, let me enter. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Xinmin leaned forward and looked at it, wondering in his heart, what exactly is the new factory director from? He licked his smiling face and wanted to get closer. The guard next to the major immediately looked at him with a sharp gaze. He even grabbed the handle of the gun and didn't say anything, but Li Xinmin's cold sweat has come down. Looking at his posture, if he dared to approach, the guards would even dare to shoot him directly. The major put the documents submitted by Lin Lunan into a security box. There are 2 keys to the box, both in the hands of the highest leader. And what is inside the file is the beginner gift package for Lin Lunan to activate the World Tree System, design diagram of top and bottom combined blowing oxygen converter. The new task released by the system is to submit this design drawing. He found Leader Wu at Mao Xiong's house, and when he saw this design plan and concept, Leader Wu couldn't believe it. It was designed by a young man of 20. Leader Wu is at Mao Xiong's house for negotiations, one of which is about steelmaking technology. For this reason, I used to enthusiastically shout, "Corn cobs," from the Diwali family and took the opportunity to ask for some very excessive demands. Leader Wu sternly refused, but also had to suffer a headache. After all, the current level of steelmaking by flour growers is only at the level of a footed chicken in the 1930s. A great trader surnamed Wang once said, one of the reasons why flour growers cannot beat footed chickens is that their steelmaking skills are not as good as footed chickens. How ridiculous. But Leader Wu knows that if flour growers want to be strong, their steel production must increase. Lin Lunan's design is not very clear to Leader Wu, but there are also experts in this field among flour growers. That's also why Lin Lunan returned to China with this design. The position of the director of the Red Star Steel Rolling Plant is an early reward for Lin Lunan. Welcome, factory director. You were so negligent just now. I couldn't believe you were so young. I am Li Xinmin, the organization director and deputy factory director of Hongxing Steel Rolling Plant. After the major left, Li Xinmin couldn't wait to come to the south of Lin Road. The flattering appearance made the managers in the factories behind them very disdainful, but they were also surprised. What exactly is the origin of this factory director? At the age of 20, one can serve as the director of a steel rolling mill. There's nothing fishy about it. They don't believe it no matter how much. Hello Director Li, I'm Lin Lunan. Previously, Lin Lunan felt that the Red Star Rolling Mill had heard of it somewhere. After hearing Director Li's self-introduction, Lin Lunan suddenly realized that this was the place where he usually worked in, the courtyard. I didn't expect to have traveled to this world. Li Xinmin quickly called for the propaganda team to play music. Thinking of continuing the welcome ceremony, Lin Lunan waved his hand and refused, asking Li Xinmin to take him directly to the factory director's office. Li Xinmin nodded and bowed as he led the way ahead. In Li Xinmin's view, being able to serve as a 15th level cadre at this age, the big tree behind this is definitely something he cannot provoke. Lin Lunan's office is located on the highest floor of the factory cadre building. It is also the largest office. Li Xinmin tirelessly introduced. The pleasing appearance made Lin Lunan feel like a spring breeze. However, Lin Lunan did not allow him to stay in his office for a long time. I found an excuse to rest and asked Li Xinmin to leave. Li Xinmin didn't dare to stay and obstruct his eyes, so he respectfully left. Watching him walk well, Lin Lunan breathed a long sigh of relief. Immediately, he opened the World Technology Tree System. In the blink of an eye, Lin Lunan appeared in a dark blue space. His feet were rippling like water. In front of him was a large tree emitting a light blue light. How tall this tree is, you can't even see its head at a glance. The light only shines at the position of the tree trunk. And at the bottom of the trunk, 3 icons shining with white light are currently on. Ding! Congratulations to the host for lighting up the World Technology Tree Icons 1.1. The host can choose one of the 3 icons as the reward for this mission. The sound of the system fell, and then a pop-up window with 3 options appeared in front of Lin Lunan. Optional Technology 1. Design of Type 59 Magic Modified Tank. Optional Technology 2. DF.2 Magic Modified Medium Range Ground-to-Ground Strategic Missile. Optional Technology 3. Type 56 Automatic Rifle Magic Modification Drawing. Looking at the two options ahead, Lin Lunan was immediately excited in his heart. This is what future flower growers need, and it is also the most rapidly developing weapon. Type 59 has activated the rabbit's 5 pairs of load-bearing will magic modifications, and DF has also created the Legend of Oriental Express. It can be launched with a bracket, but it can also occur without a bracket, and it has become the favorite international aid for camels and lions. It's also a presence that makes eagle sauce shiver. However, there is a problem. Even if it is handed over to the country, it is still difficult with the current national strength and technological level. No materials, no resources. After falling out with Mao Xiong in the future, both technologies have a period of time off. It's Technology 3, you should know that 56 Chong has become a weapon with almost equal status to aka 47. For a long time to come, Baba Sheep will also be using this series of guns. It's just you. Lin Lunan no longer thinks about it. He first exchanged 56 Chong before saying, although it indicates that the final draft of this gun was released in a year, this is a modified version, definitely more solid and user-friendly than the original version. After Lin Lunan emerged from the system space, a knock came from outside his office. It's Li Xinmin again. Lin Lunan let him in and saw Li Xinmin walking in with a face full of spring breeze. There was also a person beside him, looking at his 25.6 figure, slim and tall, with a small beard on his mouth. Upon seeing this person, memories of Lin Lunan's past life flooded in. Isn't this person Su Damao? Although Su Damao still looked very young at the moment, it was not difficult to recognize his oily and timid appearance. Director Lin, are you busy? It's like this. I forgot earlier and there's something else I haven't told you. Li Xinmin respectfully said. Su Damao, who was standing beside him, was greatly surprised. Is this young man the new factory director? It looks like you're in your 20s too. Lin Lunan nodded lightly. I opened my mouth and asked. Li Xinmin smiled. It's like this, the family building in the factory has not started construction yet. During this period, I have been wrong that you, the factory director, should stay in the courtyard over from Zhengyangmen. Living in a courtyard house. Lin Lunan hesitated for a moment and turned to look at Su Damao. Su Damao quickly opened his mouth and smiled at Lin Lunan, showing how flattering he was. Lin Lunan couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Shouldn't it be the quadrangle I thought of? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. The towering second grandpa was frightened and dumbfounded. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Lin Lunan never expected that after coming to this world, unexpectedly, they will live in that courtyard house. The greedy, hypocritical, and generous Qinhuai Ru, looking at Heyuzhu, who is honest, but actually lacks a brain, and that group of white-eyed wolves. When Lin Lunan thought about his future and wanting to live with these beasts, he felt a headache. Li Xinmin watched as Lin Lunan wrinkled up every day, realizing that Lin Lunan was dissatisfied with where he lived. He just thought that Lin Lunan was disgusted by the distance he lived in and living with workers. Thinking of this, Li Xinmin quickly explained. Factory director, there are several rooms in the courtyard of the quadrangle that are all empty. It's just where an old teacher lives. It's very quiet. You can ask Su Damao about this, where he lives. Yes, very quiet. Su Damao nodded repeatedly. He is very excited now. Although this factory director is young, he can make directorly. This bastard, so respectful, that must be a person with a clear eye. Being neighbors with such a big shot, that's why the moon comes first near the water tower. What Li Xinmin and Su Damao said was exaggerated. They didn't know that Lin Lunan already knew where the courtyard was. But it's just a temporary residence. Once the family building is completed, he will move out. Now we can't let Li Xinmin find himself another place to live, can we? He is not without objection when he becomes the factory director. It was only with the words spoken by Leader Wu and the nod of Leader Li that these objections were suppressed. Now Lin Lunan doesn't want to find himself a bad handle. He agreed, and Li Xinmin grinned, but when he saw Su Damao in the spare time, he suddenly let out a cold snort in his heart. Don't think Su Damao doesn't know what he's thinking. Li Xinmin asked Su Damao to lead the way south of Lin Road. The Hongxing steel rolling plant is located on the outskirts of the city, and there is still a distance to the courtyard at Zhengyangmen. Fortunately, in this era, Yanjing did not suffer from traffic congestion. You look so young, I didn't expect you to have already become a factory director. This is not only the organization's trust in you, but also definitely your outstanding qualities. This one by one, Su Damao's respectful appearance is different from the arrogant and domineering one that Lin Lunan remembers. However, it is also true that Su Damao's arrogance are all against Heyuzhu and the others. Even in front of Li Xinmin, Su Damao is a person with his tail between his legs, not to mention in front of oneself. If it weren't for knowing what kind of character Su Damao is, Lin Lunan will really be deceived by his performance today. This person is the most soft and afraid of hard food in the courtyard. He is also a lecherous person. He fought with Heyuzhu for decades, and in the end, he and Heyuzhu, two men, both of them are in the hands of Qinhuai Ru and Qin Jingru, sisters. However, compared to Heyuzhu, Su Damao was purely self-deprecating. He even abandoned women like Lu Xiao'e. He also tricked the Lu family and took possession of their assets. Such a person will definitely fear you when you gain power, but if you lose power, then he is definitely the first person to fall into trouble. Director Yang and the three elders are the best examples. They were all tricked by Su Damao. Hey, I said Su Damao, why did you come back now? I said you didn't know you were in a hurry, kid. Just as I arrived at the entrance of the courtyard, a spirited voice came from me. Lin Lunan looked up and saw a chubby man with big ears and square glasses on his face. Squinting his eyes, he looked towering. Second grandpa, why did you come back so early today? You deliberately blocked us at the door. Su Damao's words were somewhat unfriendly. Su Damao thought that the second uncle had heard some news, intentionally waiting at the door for the factory director to come. Lin Lunan listened to Su Damao's address to the incoming person. I understand his identity now, in the bangs of the second master in the courtyard. Another character who is unable to live due to his own wrongdoing, often due to trivial matters. He had a heated argument with his own son. What's even more ridiculous is that after his son started working, his three sons not only have to pay half of their salary every month, you also have to pay for the meal expenses. Finally, he was forced to separate from his own son. In the end, even though the second uncle had three sons, he ended up with no one to rely on. I said to Su Damao, don't let me talk like I'm holding a gun and a stick here. I'm waiting for you here today because of your business. The Bangs let out a cold snort. I think Su Damao doesn't recognize good people. Su Damao wondered, these two masters have always been the ones who don't get up early without profit. Why are you still waiting for yourself here for your own business today? I can tell you what the girl's name was last time. Oh, by the way, what's your name? Lu Xiao'e. You didn't keep an eye on that girl last time. That girl is pretty good, don't let that silly guy snatch her. Su Damao was momentarily stunned when he heard this, and then ran into the courtyard with a gust of wind under his feet. Lin Lunan stood still, looking at Su Damao, who had passed away with a cold smile in his heart. No wonder later on, Su Damao and Heyuzhu would have a fight every once in a while. The two have been at odds. Heyuzhu has been against Su Damao all along. It seems that besides Su Damao's poor character, also because Su Damao robbed Lu Xiao'e. Lu Xiao'e, Lin Lunan remembers that she was heavily tricked by Su Damao. Kid, who are you? Why did you follow Su Damao? Only then did Lu Haizhong notice the presence of Lin Lunan. He held his head high, his hands behind his back, and his gaze contemptuously scrutinized Lin Lunan. In his opinion, the person who can walk the same path as Su Damao is definitely not an important person. Perhaps it was the assistance arranged by the steel rolling mill for Su Damao. Oh, I just moved in. Su Damao just showed me the way. Lin Lunan smiled lightly and said, the bangs suddenly sneered, looking at Lin Lunan. I said you're also speechless. The factory asked you to follow Su Damao, so you shouldn't be polite to him. Su Damao was also called by you, but why haven't I heard anyone move in? Forget it, you can follow me inside. By the way, where do you live? With his hands behind his back in the bangs and a high and mighty posture, he leads the way ahead. Lin Lunan responded and said that he lives in the middle courtyard. Turning his head in the bangs, he looked like he was watching a good show and smiled at Lin Lunan. Then you're going to have bad luck. Lin Lunan frowned slightly, looking at the bangs in the middle. It seems like I'm living in the courtyard. What kind of trouble would there be? Just as Lin Lunan entered the entrance of the courtyard, at this moment, Su Damao, who had just hurriedly left, turned back again. He looked very embarrassed and ran to Lin Lunan with a guilty expression on his face. I'm really sorry, factory director. I was too anxious just now and didn't intentionally ignore you. You don't know, that he used you is not a good thing. I'm afraid it might delay that girl. Lin Lunan said it's okay on the surface, but in his heart, he sneered at his rhetoric. Do you really think he's a master who doesn't understand anything, so deceitful? And the second uncle on the side was scared and foolish, factory director. What factory director? Why does Su Damao call this young factory director? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Encountering problems immediately upon arrival, stick meme. This. You are listening at novel full.audio. The second uncle's bangs couldn't turn his mind for a moment. A pair of big eyes stared at Lin Lunan in disbelief. Su Damao stood by, looking at the appearance of the second master, and immediately understood. The second master must have committed the same old problem again. It must be putting on airs in front of this young factory director. That's why I was so surprised when I found out about the identity of the factory director. Su Damao coughed lightly twice and intentionally introduced himself to the second uncle. Second grandpa, this is the new factory director of our steel rolling plant, Director Lin. This is the second grandpa of our courtyard house. The bang stared at Su Damao. This kid must have intentionally watched me embarrass myself in front of the new factory director. You are the new factory director. Lu Haixiong's face changed faster than flipping through a book. Watching Su Damao curl his mouth, I secretly thought to myself, this old man's ability to steer according to the wind is becoming stronger and stronger. Well, hello, I'm Lin Lunan. Oh, hello, my name is Lu Haixiong and I am a level 6 welder in our factory. He. Lu Haixiong wiped his hands on his clothes. He thought that when Lin Lunan heard that he was a level 6 welder, will shake hands with oneself. The previous leaders who came down from above did this, but Lin Lunan just nodded at him, turning to look at Su Damao. Su Damao, how can I get to where I live? The smile on Lu Haixiong's face immediately stiffened. I feel very unhappy in my heart. Why is this new factory director so impressive? Is it difficult to achieve? Is it a big deal? Yes, he looks just in his early 20s. At such an age, one can become a factory director, so their background must be quite impressive. Upon reflection, Lu Haixiong felt that Lin Lunan's indifference towards him was not unacceptable. Su Damao eagerly led the way ahead. Lu Haixiong also followed behind, constantly introducing the current situation of the courtyard house. By the way, please praise yourself. I used to just watch TV dramas and watch quadrangle houses, and I thought it was just that. I only realized with my own eyes that this quadrangle is indeed good. The courtyard with 3 entrances, the living space is also spacious. In later generations, this courtyard would cost at least a few 100 million yuan, not to mention, the location of this quadrangle is the Zhenyang Gate, and in the future, this land boundary will not be just about every inch of land and every inch of gold. In our courtyard, the masters have always been Yi Zhonghai, Yan Bugue, and me. But it's different when you come, factory manager. It's In the future, it's definitely you who will be with us. In the Bangs, this means pleasing, but even if he tries to please, he never forgets his rights. Lin Lunan remembers that Lu Haizhong was an official fan with a deep obsession with power. It is precisely because of this that he helped Su Damao persecute the people of the Lu family. By the way, your courtyard happens to be where the third master Yan Bugue lives. He is a teacher and craftsman, and you are all cultured people. You must be able to talk about it. Lu Haizhong said tirelessly. Lin Nan Road didn't answer a word. He was originally temporarily living in this courtyard. When the family building inside the factory is completed, it will definitely be moved out of here. As for the beasts in this courtyard, Lin Nan Road really doesn't want to intersect. But by the way, didn't Su Damao hurry to find Lu Xiao'e just now? With his personality, he surprisingly came back without causing a big fuss. Is it difficult for him to see that Heyuzhu and Lu Xiao'e are not compatible? Lin Nanlu thought of this and shook his head with a smirk. I was just thinking about not getting involved in the things here. Why am I still thinking about this? It wasn't long before I arrived at the courtyard. Lin Lunan lives across from second grandpa. The furniture and bedding have all been delivered. Please take a break first, and then second grandpa and I will leave first. After Lin Lunan entered the house, Su Damao said goodbye to him and also took the second uncle away. For Lin Lunan, Su Damao has done a good thing. However, from a distance, Lin Lunan heard Su Damao say something to the second uncle. Second grandpa, I just saw that Lu Xiao'e doesn't like Heyuzhu. You need to help me with this matter, otherwise I won't help you talk to Director Li about your eldest son's entry into the factory. Upon hearing this, the second master was indeed grasped. What he is most worried about now is his eldest son. If you don't enter the factory, you'll have to go up the mountains and down to the countryside. Don't worry, I know, that kid silly Zhu can't do it. Isn't there still a Qinhuai Ru? After the second uncle finished speaking, Su Damao also smiled lightly. The reason why he turned back the way he had just now was because he saw Qinhuai Ru enter Heyuzhu's house. Since the death of Qinhuai Ru's husband last year, Heyuzhu helps every now and then. After only half a year of hard work, the Qinhuai Ru family seems to be relying on Heyuzhu. The people in this courtyard all feel that they are colluding. Lin Lunan listened for a moment, but didn't listen anymore. He has just taken office and has a lot of things to do. Where do you care about the beasts in this yard? After more than 10 minutes, Lin Lunan had almost finished organizing his room. There's actually nothing to organize, the furniture is already made. He sat at his desk, intending to take a look at the blueprint of the 56-type magic modification provided by the system. Just at this moment. Outside the room, suddenly a small person rushed in, at the age of 8 or 9, with a tiger-like head and tiger-like brain, but his eyes were full of hostility. Who are you and why did you come into my house? As soon as the child entered the door, he pointed to Lin Lunan and shouted. The gritted teeth looked like Lin Lunan snatched some treasure from him. Are you a meme? Lin Lunan also guessed that the little boy in the courtyard, at this age in this era, that's all about stick memes. I am Bata Ji, who are you and why are you robbing my house? Bang Ji stared at him, feeling so angry at such a young age. No wonder he became a white-eyed wolf in the future. Lin Lunan sneered. This is where I live, how did it become your house? Nonsense, this is my family. My grandmother said, this was my dad's life for it. Bang Ji clenched his fist and looked at his posture as he wanted to hit himself. Lin Lunan is unwilling to argue with children, but if this kid goes too far, he doesn't mind teaching him a lesson for his parents. In this era, the houses in quadrangle courtyards belong to the public, not personal. The people of the Jia family surprisingly have the courage to treat the house as their own private property. Get out of here. Bang Ji let out a roar, raised his fist, and charged towards Lin Lunan. Lin Lunan furrowed his brows and slapped the table heavily. With a loud bang, like thunder, Bang Ji was immediately frightened and foolish. Get out of here. If you don't show off, you really think you're a soft persimmon. Bang Ji was scared and ran out crying. Lin Lunan frowned, feeling very unhappy in his heart. I just came here and unexpectedly encountered such a thing. He knew that this matter would definitely not end here. Sure enough, soon after, a shout came from outside the room. That blind fool dares to bully my child from the Lao Jia family. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. When a new official takes office, the first flame burns until. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Inside the courtyard of a quadrangle courtyard. Jia Zhang held Huaihua in one hand and Qinhuai Ru in the other, holding Xiaodang. There is also a stick meme with red eyes and a raging anger. The whole family has gone out. Jia Zhangshi was furious there, cursing incessantly, which was unbearable. The other neighbors in the courtyard are all avoiding it. Everyone who lives here knows that since the death of Jia Zhang's son, Jia Zhang became a crazy woman, who provoked their family. They will be charged with bullying orphans and widows. After Jia Dongxiu passed away unexpectedly last year, the Jia Zhang family demanded compensation from the factory for their family. At that time, Jia Zhang took a liking to the house in the middle courtyard. The old man also felt sorry for their family, so he applied to the factory, but there has been no batch in the factory. However, Jia and Zhang have already regarded the room where Lin Lunan lives as belonging to their family, and even threatened to marry him when the meme grew up, but unexpectedly, someone moved in today. P.S. The storyline needs to be advanced, please do not spray. Lin Lunan drove away the stick meme, and in the eyes of Jia Zhang, it was bullying their family. Lin Lunan listened to Jia Zhang's recklessness outside. His face became increasingly ugly. He was too lazy to come into contact with these beasts, and he didn't expect them to come knocking on his door. This Jia Zhang family is definitely the most greedy person in this courtyard house. Not only did he squeeze his own daughter.in.law, but he also let Qinhuai Ru seduce Heyuzhu, for those few bites of meat. According to Qinhuai Ru's salary in Jia Sudong's pension, the Jia family's days are not difficult at all. Qinhuai Ru's monthly salary is 27.5 yuan, and selling corn flour is enough for their family to eat for several months. Even if you eat rice, there is still surplus. However, Heyuzhu foolishly thought that their family of 5 would have a difficult time, but this era is much more difficult than the Qinhuai Ru family. Shut up. Lin Lunan had not yet left when someone in the yard started scolding him. I said, you old lady, you used to be reckless, but today you dare to curse the factory director here. You're crazy. Listening to this voice, I don't think it's Su Damao's second uncle. Is it difficult to still be known that one has moved in? Lin Lunan walked out. I saw an old man in the yard with a cut in his head, looking quite imposing. He was scolding an old woman. That old woman should be Jia Zhang, with a sharp and sarcastic appearance. As for the old man, judging from his demeanor and the awe in the eyes of the people around him, it should be Yi Zhonghai, an old man. Factory director. What factory director? What nonsense are you talking about, Grandpa? What I'm cursing is. At this moment, Jia Zhang turned around and happened to see Lin Lunan. Bangji also noticed him and immediately pointed to Lin Lunan, shouting. Grandma, that's this bastard. Lying trough. Lin Lunan's face suddenly darkened. He's not a good-tempered person either. Don't think he's a child and just stop doing it yourself. Before he could even take action, an old man had already gone up and slapped Bang Ji heavily in the face. You don't teach your child well, I don't mind teaching for you. The old man was furious. He only learned from Director Li that the new factory director had moved in, still living in the courtyard. He immediately knew that things were going to be bad and hurried back, but he didn't expect it to be too late. I'm not living anymore. You all bully us because there's no man in our family. I'm not living anymore. Jia Zhang sat down on the ground, crying and making a scene. Qinhuai Ru approached to persuade her that she had just seen Lin Lunan for the first time. I felt that the person in front of me was not simple, and I remembered what an old man had just said. Qinhuai Ru was certain in her heart that this young man, who seemed not much smaller than herself, it's very likely that he's the new factory director. But Jia Zhang didn't appreciate it at all and pushed Qinhuai Ru away. If you don't move me out today, I won't live anymore. I'll go find Director Li and the factory director, and I'll sue you. In this era, a factory manager is similar to a local emperor, having a significant amount of power. A word from the factory director can determine the future of the workers in this factory. Jia Zhang didn't believe that she would cause trouble to the new factory director like this. The factory will not explain to itself. Tell me the factory director. Alright, then you can tell me. I'm right here. Lin Lunan looked at Jia Zhang, who was throwing a splash, calmly and lightly. Jia Zhang's eyes suddenly froze. Who is this kid? He has such a big demeanor. He's not even afraid of the new factory director. Jia Zhang, this is the new director of our factory, Director Lin. Don't embarrass me here. Director Lin just took office today and he's still tired. Don't make any fuss. An old man glared at Jia Zhang. Jia Zhang is even dumber. Is this young man the factory director? It won't be deceiving oneself, will it? The people who were just watching the show around were also dumbfounded. This person is the factory director. You're too young. Oh my goodness. I just saw the factory director's joke again. Isn't this finished? No one expected that the factory director would live in a courtyard. And just as he moved in, Jia Zhang offended him. Humph. Lin Lunan suddenly snorted. The old man's heart suddenly thumped as he looked at it, knowing that Jia Zhang caused trouble. As the saying goes, when a new official takes office, there are 3 fires that seem to be burning into this courtyard. Qinhuai Ru was also confused, but she reacted quickly, immediately stepped forward and said soft words. Director Lin, I'm really sorry. My mother thought this house had already been approved for our family. He thought it was an evil person who came to occupy it. Look at his age. Since the head of the family passed away, my mother's temper has been like this. If you don't mind being petty, don't worry. Qinhuai Ru deliberately wiped the corner of her eyes. What she said was indeed beautiful. He held Lin Lunan high and said that his husband had died. I think Lin Lunan has just taken office and won't leave a reputation for bullying orphans and widows. As far as I know, Jia Sudong was hit by a car outside while resting. It was clearly an accident. Why would the factory provide compensation? With Lin Lunan's words, Qinhuai Ru and Jia Zhang's faces immediately turned pale. Even the old man's face was very unpleasant, because he went to handle this matter, and at that time the factory had just been built. Many orders were not perfect, so he entrusted acquaintances to report compensation to Jia Dongxiu, and it was approved smoothly, but he never expected that as soon as the new factory director arrived, he would know about this matter. At that time, Jia Dongxiu was also helping the factory out with tasks, which happened to be when he was in a hurry to rest. The old man explained with an unpleasant expression. He immediately understood in his heart, don't look at the new factory manager as not very old, but he is definitely not a good talker. Jia Dongxiu's matter was decided before I came, so I won't pursue the pension I received earlier. The old man breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing these words, but he didn't expect that there was still something behind Lin Lunan. Starting from this month, it will be terminated. I will return what I have received this month, otherwise it will be deducted from next month's salary. If you don't want to, you can leave now. In one sentence, the old man was shocked. Qinhuai Ru suddenly felt powerless and sat on the ground with her legs flaccid. Jia Zhangshi stood there dumbfounded, with a runny nose and tears streaming down her face. She only now understood who she had offended. 5 yuan a month, saying no, that's all. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Is there anyone else watching? If you have me, it will explode into 20 chapters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is there anyone else watching? If you have me, it will explode into 20 chapters. Is there anyone else watching? If not, I'll ask again later. If there are more than 30 comments, it's 5 o'clock every day. More than 50 comments, 6 updates per day. Well, that's it. There's no need to reward flowers or anything like that. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. The behavior of the Jia family must be severely punished. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Not long after, both the second and third masters came over, knowing about the Jia family's situation. They dare not say anything in front of Lin Road South. If this matter is to be blamed, it can only be blamed on Jia Zhang's own death, causing trouble to those who should not have been provoked. But isn't Director Lin too ruthless? I deducted 5 yuan in one go, which is enough to buy 50 pounds of rice. It's enough for the Jia family to eat 5 bites for a month, but if it's corn flour, it can last even longer. I can't live anymore. If you can't survive, go somewhere else. In this era, entering the factory is like having an iron rice bowl. If it weren't for making a big mistake, it could still be passed down to the next generation. But the factory director has absolute power, and the appointment, dismissal, and rating of workers are just one sentence from the factory director. Of course, the factory director cannot dismiss workers casually, but he can still make Qinhuai Ru change jobs. That's also why on weekdays, the 3 masters who can summon wind and rain in the courtyard, in front of Lin Lunan, he was as gentle as a sheep. Jia Zhang's voice completely disappeared, and she really changed her job when filming Qinhuai Ru. Then his entire family really has no way to survive. An old man sighed and asked Qinhuai Ru to take Jia Zhang away. Immediately, his face changed and he approached Lin Lunan, introducing himself. Director Lin, I'm really sorry to have caused you such a bad situation as soon as I arrived. It's all because I didn't manage them well in my daily life, hehe. Yi Zhonghai's meaning is very obvious. He was the final say in the courtyard before. Although Lin Lunan is the factory director, it's best to discuss things within the courtyard with them. Lin Lunan looked at him with a smile on his face. It seems like nothing was heard. Hehe, this matter will be arranged by the factory, so Grandpa doesn't have to worry. Lin Lunan didn't give Yi Zhonghai any face. This makes Yi Zhonghai feel unhappy in his heart, but he also knew that although Director Lin looked young, he was definitely not a good speaker. Hello, Director Lin. A gentleman who looked polite and wore glasses, resembling a scholar, pushed aside Yi Zhonghai, arriving in front of Lin Lunan, with a face full of hospitality and enthusiasm. It goes without saying that this old man should be the third old man, Yan Bugui. Are you the third master? I dare not. Director Lin will call me Yan Bugui in the future. Second Grandpa dare not pretend to be big in front of Lin Road South. The first master is a level 8 fitter, and the second master is a level 6 welder. He's just a teacher, but second master has ambition. The elementary school he teaches doesn't have a principal yet. Elementary school is under the name of the steel rolling mill, and who is the principal, as Lin Lunan said. Let's call it Sandiyi instead. Lin Lunan chuckled lightly. On the first day, I saw these 3 masters myself. The second uncle is greedy for power, and his interests influence his heart. The third master is timid and not a good person, and as for an old man, Lin Lunan doesn't have much opinion of him. He has nothing to do with Heyuzhu, who will be the one he wants to suck blood from in the future. The move of Lin Lunan, the factory director, into a courtyard house is a rare event for the courtyard house. So, on the joint suggestion of the 3 masters, the quadrangle courtyard held a collective meeting. Lin Lunan wanted to refuse, but the 3 gentlemen insisted on doing so. He had no choice but to participate. The people in the courtyard have all come. Lin Lunan saw the legendary silly pillar, Heyuzhu. It has to be said that this foolish pillar is not much different from the image he had in mind. It looks simple and honest, with a big and rough appearance, making it a good dish for a chef. Along with Heyuzhu, there is also a young girl who is 18 or 19 years old. wearing a floral long dress, dressed in a dazzling array of flowers. It creates a sharp contrast with the girls in the courtyard, more like a young lady. If I guess correctly, she is already Lu Xiao'e. She came with Heyuzhu, but when she arrived at the yard, she hardly ever looked directly at Heyuzhu, but instead glanced at Su Damao a few times. However, he quickly withdrew his gaze, and Su Damao's eyes wished they had grown on Lu Xiao'e. Lin Lunan doesn't know many other people either. He only knew a few important people, and he forgot the other supporting role. The collective meeting was held. In the middle seat where only 3 gentlemen were originally sitting, there was an extra Lin Lunan. Those who knew his identity calmly accepted it. The reason why the 3 masters are able to hold power in the courtyard is because they are all elderly people who sit on the throne based on public opinion and prestige. But Lin Lunan is different. He is actually in power. Who is this person? He looks so young. Isn't he the illegitimate son of the second master? A sudden sound sounded. The big guy looked over and saw Heyuzhu chewing on melon seeds, smashing his lips. Heyuzhu, please keep your mouth clean and don't talk nonsense. This is the new director of our factory, Director Lin. Su Damao was the first to stand up and scold Heyuzhu. He used to be called Silly Zhu, but this time he is called Heyuzhu's full name. This is not to let Lin Lunan know. The person who speaks recklessly is called Heyuzhu. In the future, give him small shoes. Heyuzhu was greatly surprised. Those who had not known Lin Lunan's identity before widened their eyes in surprise. What a young factory director. Why did the factory director move into our yard? The factory director looks very handsome. I wonder if he has taken his wife. The big guy was whispering. It was only when the old man spoke that their voices were suppressed. At the very end of the crowd, Lu Xiao'e fanned her eyelashes a few times and looked at Lin Lunan with surprised eyes. Factory director. You're so young, it doesn't seem like you're a few years older than me. Everyone is quiet, chattering like something. Don't let the factory director see us laughing. Let me introduce you. This is our new factory director, Lin Lunan, who just returned from Laomaozi. He is a very outstanding talent. The old man's words fell. There was a sudden uproar in the whole room. Surprisingly, he came back from the Mao Xiong family. In this era, the Mao Xiong family is still a sacred presence in the hearts of the flower growers. No wonder he became the factory director at such a young age. It turns out he came back from the Mao Xiong family. Now, please have the factory director say a few words. The second uncle suggested. Lin Lunan originally intended to be a cut scene, but I didn't expect to be pushed out. He frowned, intending to refuse, but in the crowd, I saw Qinhuai Ru with a pale face. He stood up and cleared his throat. Since the 3 masters want me to say something, then I'll say something. I just came here and I don't know much about some specific situations, but I want to remind everyone. This yard is an asset of the factory, not someone else's. The Jia family's behavior is extremely heinous. This is digging a corner of the country's wall, and this matter must be punished severely. No one expected that Lin Lunan, who had just been stabbed by the Jia family, he slashed fiercely on the Jia family again. Digging corners of the country, if this matter gets too big, the Jia family will be ruined. There is a great possibility that one will leave with a heavy burden. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Lu Xiao'e bringing home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qinhuai Ru's face turned pale as earth, and she collapsed on the ground. She felt anxious and uneasy in her heart, also blaming her mother. Law, what are you doing to provoke this new factory director? Maybe I'll lose my job at the steel rolling mill. Lin Lunan's resolute attitude shocked everyone in the courtyard. The first and second masters both looked over in surprise. They want to speak up to help the Jia family. After all, they are all in the same courtyard, and it's inevitable to feel a sense of rabbit death and fox sorrow. Lin Lunan remained calm and stopped them. These 3 gentlemen seemed to be working hard for the people in the courtyard, but in reality, they are all people who generously donate to others and help others out. Alright, it's getting late too. The big guy has already left. He still has to go to work tomorrow morning. Lin Lunan's words can be considered as a complete loss of face for the three masters. In the past, what was said to be scattered was all about Yi Zhonghai, an old man. Cough, since the factory director said it's gone, that big guy has all gone. An old man forcibly regained some face, but everyone knows in their hearts that the new factory director has put a heavy burden on the old man today. That silly pillar, come over here. The second uncle suddenly called out to Heyuzhu. Heyuzhu was about to leave when he turned around and looked over in confusion. The second uncle pointed at Heyuzhu and said with a smile, "Director Lin, you have also worked hard today. This silly pillar is the best cook in our factory. How about having him cook dinner for you?" Upon hearing this, Heyuzhu became unhappy. He had been busy all day and had not even eaten yet. He also wants to give Lu Xiao'e a taste of his craft. Maybe his marriage will come to an end. At this moment, the second uncle actually asked himself to cook for the factory director. Will reimbursement be given or not? The second uncle looked at Heyuzhu standing there foolishly and shouted in dissatisfaction. "I said, what are you stupid kid still standing there doing?" The second uncle stared at Heyuzhu, but secretly, he cast a glance at Su Damao. Su Damao immediately understood that this was the opportunity that second grandpa wanted to give himself. If Heyuzhu is supported, then he won't be able to be alone with Lu Xiao'e. With his eloquence, he doesn't believe he can't win a little girl movie. "No need, this is not in the factory. Master, he doesn't need to cook for me. I think some bad habits can be changed in the future." Lin Lunan surprisingly refused. This surprised the second uncle. In the past, those who came down from above did not lack wool harvesting. Heyuzhu is also willing. After all, he can get many benefits from it. The remaining meat and vegetables have all entered his lunchbox. However, he is not in the factory today, and if he cooks, there is nothing to go with. Fortunately, Director Lin refused, otherwise he might have suffered losses today. Su Damao was disappointed. Why did the factory director refuse? Don't send Heyuzhu away. Where did he get the opportunity? Not far away, Lu Xiao'e's gaze looked at Lin Lunan with a hint of surprise. She has seen many people who deal with her father. Those people who can take advantage will definitely get more, but does this new factory director seem a bit different? At this moment, Lin Lunan suddenly looked at her. Feeling Lin Lunan's gaze, Lu Xiao'e's heart suddenly felt like a deer bumping around, but soon Lin Lunan shifted his gaze away. At this moment, the second uncle wanted to speak again, but Lin Lunan said he was tired and blocked his mouth. "I didn't expect Director Lin's principle to be so strong." After Lin Lunan leaves, the third master Yan Bugue couldn't help but sigh. The first and second masters both sneered at the words. "I said, third master, I'm not here anymore. You don't need to flatter me here." "That's right, who doesn't know what you're thinking? I don't think this principal's position is necessarily yours." The third master was furious and glared at the first and second masters, but he didn't dare to take action either, so he could only snort and leave, swinging his sleeves. All three gentlemen have left. Su Damao, Lu Xiao'e, and Heyuzhu were left in the courtyard. Heyuzhu tried to please Lu Xiao'e by saying that he had brought some pork belly back from the cafeteria today, just made a pot of braised pork belly. At this moment, although it is not yet the most difficult thing, but it's not easy to have braised pork belly. Heyuzhu tried to catch Lu Xiao'e with braised pork belly, but he miscalculated. If this move is to deal with Qinhuai Ru, perhaps it is really possible, but the Lu family is a patriotic businessman, and even during the most difficult times, they never let Lu Xiao'e suffer. Even without big fish and meat, eating meat every once in a while is not a difficult thing. Heyuzhu wants to use this to please Lu Xiao'e. For Lu Xiao'e, it is roughly equivalent to later generations, where boys take girls to eat at McDonald's. Even Su Damao couldn't stand Heyuzhu's actions, but he was secretly pleased in his heart. The less Heyuzhu pleased Lu Xiao'e, the more opportunities he has to take advantage of the situation. "What kind of braised pork belly do you want?" Xiao'e, let me invite you to have some brush mutton. I know there is a shop that tastes good. Damao is full of anticipation. If it were in the past, perhaps he really succeeded. But at this moment, Lu Xiao'e was very preoccupied and didn't have the heart to think about going out with Damao to eat some brushed lamb. No, I'm a bit tired. I'll go back first. Lu Xiao'e smiled lightly, without giving Heyuzhu and Damao any chance to stay, he turned around and left. After Lu Xiao'e left, Heyuzhu and Damao looked disgusted. They all think it's to deal with the anger that drove Lu Xiao'e away. The two of them snorted at each other. Just like you deserve Lu Xiao'e. Damao simply stopped pretending. Upon hearing this, Heyuzhu's anger surged up. Don't be delusional, this was introduced to me by the old lady. I think you should still be with Qinhuai Ru. Damao didn't even pay attention to Heyuzhu. As long as Qinhuai Ru is here, it's impossible for Heyuzhu and Lu Xiao'e. In this courtyard, the only one who can match Lu Xiao'e is Damao. Intermediate Court. Lin Lunan is too lazy to know about the three masters. He doesn't want to meddle in the affairs within the courtyard. The reason for dealing with the Jia family like this today is also because of Jia Zhang's previous behavior. Mud figurines also have 3 fires, let alone him. Lin Lunan glanced at the time and it was getting late. Suddenly, he had some nostalgia for the days when takeout was available. Just hold your phone and wait at home. Let's go out and take a look later. It's perfect to see Yanjing in this era. In my past life, Lin Lunan had never been to Yanjing before. I just got off the train today and went to the steel rolling mill. It's perfect to go out and take a look tonight. He changed his clothes and sat at the desk. I took out the Type 56 automatic rifle magic modification drawing from the system. Having no equipment or weapons on hand gave Lin Lunan a headache. How about submitting the drawings directly? Just as he came up with this idea, he shook his head and rejected it. He just took out the design diagram of the top and bottom combined blowing oxygen converter. Submitting another drawing now is too fast, it may even raise suspicion. Lin Lunan suppressed this idea. Maybe he could try his old leader. Lin Lunan was thinking. Suddenly, a knock came from the door. Director Lin, are you at home? Listening to the sound, it's a bit familiar. Upon opening the door, it turned out to be Lu Xiao'e. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Lu Xiao'e, Damao, still a girl. You are listening at novel full.audio. It's getting late. Lu Xiao'e is not with Damao or Heyuzhu. Why did you come to your own house? Strestivi, Davari. When Lu Xiao'e spoke, she greeted her with a Russian greeting, which means hello. Strestivi. Lin Lunan chuckled back. Upon hearing this, Lu Xiao'e smiled with a smile, her green and slender fingers curling up her scattered hair at her temples. This appearance is completely different from the previous cold attitude towards Heyuzhu. Lin Lunan looked at Lu Xiao'e's shy appearance and smiled lightly before asking. Hello, I'm not sure if Miss Lu has anything to ask me for. Isn't it just to test my Russian pronunciation? Lu Xiao'e raised her head slightly and looked at Lin Lunan. There was a hint of shyness in his expression. It's not that she immediately fell in love with Lin Lunan, but rather the handsome appearance of Lin Lunan, compared to rough men like Damao and Heyuzhu, as if emitting bright light. Lu Xiao'e dared not look at Lin Lunan for a moment. But when I heard Lin Lunan calling me Miss Lin, Lu Xiao'e felt inexplicably lost in her heart. But I also believe that I have only met Lin Lunan for the first time. The address cannot be too close. Director Lin, who returned from studying abroad like this, is a highly educated and talented student. How could it be compared to shameless people like Damao? Actually, there's nothing important either. Just now, an old man said, Director Lin, you came back from the Mao Xiong family. I had originally planned to go to school, but later it was delayed due to some things. Can I ask you some questions about the bear side? Lu Xiao'e's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Lin Lunan knew that Lu Xiao'e's family background was good. Unexpectedly, she almost went to Mao Xiong's house. He frowned slightly, intending to refuse, but Lu Xiao'e suddenly exclaimed in surprise. "Is that the bare version of how steel was tempered?" Lu Xiao'e's eyes lit up as she had previously gone to study at Mao Xiong's house. "I have also studied Russian for a period of time, so I can tell the title of the book at a glance." "Well, it was given to me by an elder." Lin Lunan responded. "This book was given to him by Leader Wu before he returned to China. There is also a message from Leader Wu on the title page." Lu Xiao'e looked up at Lin Lunan, her eyes just showing a hint of anticipation. In an instant, it disappeared again. She doesn't know what's wrong with herself either. In front of Heyuzhu and Su Damao, she always manages to remain calm, but in front of Lin Lunan, she felt as if her heart was about to jump out. Lin Lunan shook his head with a smirk. "Please ask Lu Xiao'e to enter the room." Then I gave her the bare version of how steel is tempered. "If you like, just watch here." Upon hearing these words, Lu Xiao'e couldn't help but feel not disappointed, but rather a little pleased. She knew this must be a book that Lin Lunan really likes, but he still let himself see. Lu Xiao'e cautiously opened the written document. "It seems like I'm worried that applying too much force might damage this book." Opening the cover page, what caught her eye was a piece of pen writing with dragons and phoenixes dancing. "Today's reality may not be perfect, but it requires us all to work together to create it." Lu Xiao'e was greatly shocked. This sentence seemed vulgar, but it made Lu Xiao'e feel that there seemed to be a strong force in this sentence. It makes people want to strive for a happy reality. "Director Lin, your elder must be a remarkable person." Lu Xiao'e couldn't help but sigh. Lin Lunan smiled. "Of course, he is an amazing person. He, known as the eternal perfect person, will be respected and loved by countless people decades later, and even longer in the future." Lin Lunan did not explain. Who gave him this sentence? Lu Xiao'e didn't ask either, but she knew that someone who could write such a sentence would. He will definitely be a very remarkable person. Lu Xiao'e is not proficient in Russian and her reading is also stumbling. However, she did not give up on this and boldly asked Lin Lunan some questions. Lu Xiao'e, who has never experienced Su Damao, is graceful and innocent, carrying the innocence of a young girl. This may be her most beautiful years, instead of being a strong woman who has to rely on herself after being devastated by life in the future. Gradually, the relationship between Lu Xiao'e and Lin Lunan became more and more harmonious. If Lu Xiao'e has any questions she doesn't understand, she will ask him for advice. Lin Lunan also refused to come, but Lu Xiao'e did not notice. "I am getting closer and closer to Lin Lunan, and my shoulders are almost leaning against Lin Lunan's chest." Moonlight falls, enveloping Lin Lunan's body. Lu Xiao'e turned her head and in an instant, she felt nothing but astonishment. However, this beautiful scene was interrupted by a strange noise. Lin Lunan's stomach growled loudly. Lu Xiao'e, who was asking Lin Lunan a question, suddenly froze. She suppressed a smile, her face curled up like cherry blossoms blooming, and finally couldn't help but chuckle. Lin Lunan let out a faint cough. "It's getting late, I haven't eaten yet, why don't we stop here for today?" Lu Xiao'e blinked her eyes a few times, and more blushes appeared on her face. She shyly looked at Lin Lunan and said, "I'm bothering you today, let me treat you to dinner." Lu Xiao'e also felt that she was too bold. Heyuzhu and Su Damao want to have dinner with her. She's not even pretending to be sexually explicit, and now she's so bold as to invite a man she's meeting for the first time to dinner. Lin Lunan glanced at the time and realized that it was too late to cook for himself now. "Anyway, I have to go out to eat." "Okay, let's go together then." Lu Xiao'e let out a soft, My heart was inexplicably filled with joy. In no time, Lin Lunan and Lu Xiao'e left the door. Lu Xiao'e smiled brightly as she walked and introduced the local cuisine to Lin Lunan. At this time, supplies are not in short supply, and harvests are abundant in various regions, so wanting to eat something good is not a difficult thing, and going out to restaurants is also a common occurrence. "Let's go eat brush lamb. I know there's a restaurant that has a great taste." In Yanjing, of course, we brush lamb and roast duck. Lin Lunan nodded in agreement, and Lu Xiao'e smiled as if it were a blooming flower. The innocence of the girl was perfectly displayed on Lu Xiao'e's face. After Lu Xiao'e and Lin Lunan leave, in the corner of the courtyard, Su Damao walked out of the shadow. His face was gloomy as if he could squeeze out water, the clenched fists burst with veins. When Lu Xiao'e came to find Lin Lunan, he came, "I've been waiting here for them to come out." Lu Xiao'e, who has long been regarded by Su Damao as her own wife, surprisingly, he got so close to the new factory director. In Su Damao's eyes, this is a betrayal of him. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Lu Xiao'e's heart moves darkly, the dilemma of the Lu family. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. During dinner, Lu Xiao'e occasionally asked some questions about the Mao Xiong family. People in this era still have a belief in the Mao Xiong family. This situation persisted until Mao Xiong's brain twitched and he severed ties with the rabbit. Lin Nanlu didn't tire of it and told Lu Xiao'e what he knew. Gradually, Lu Xiao'e's gaze at Lin Lunan became increasingly bright. Especially Lin Lunan proposed that future flower growers, if we stick to the strategy we have set now, so it is very likely that within a few decades, they will catch up with the neighboring countries of the Foot Basin and Gaul, becoming the world's third largest power. It's not that Lin Lunan is arrogant. In fact, if it weren't for delaying some time, taking the wrong path, perhaps the rise of flower growers can be advanced by several decades. Lu Xiao'e didn't know that Lin Lunan had witnessed glory before. She thinks Lin Lunan is really different, unlike Su Damao and Heyuzhu, who only fuss over trivial matters all day long. At this moment, the image of Lin Lunan in her eyes, security becomes another, knowledgeable and patriotic young person with aspirations. It is difficult for such a man not to be captivating in this era. After eating, it's getting late. Lin Lunan looked out at the street and thought of taking Lu Xiao'e home. Lu Xiao'e let out a soft her heart filled with joy. She was just thinking about how to speak up and ask Lin Lunan to take her home. Unexpectedly, Lin Lunan proposed it himself, and Lu Xiao'e naturally followed suit. "I'll trouble you then." "Well, you're welcome." Lin Lunan gave a faint response. It's not that he deliberately did this, but the public security in this era is not very good. Let a girl go home on her own tonight, it's really not very safe. Two people just left the door and entered an alley. A person riding a bicycle collided head-on in the wind and scenery. The speed is very fast, and the person seems to be unable to stop, urgently shouting. "Get out of here, get out of here." Lu Xiao'e's face turned pale with fear and she stood there dumbfounded. Upon seeing this, Lin Lunan hugged Lu Xiao'e's slender waist and pulled her apart. Lu Xiao'e murmured, her face flushed as if bleeding could seep through. Originally, Lin Lunan's hand accidentally touched a soft spot. Lu Xiao'e knew that Lin Lunan must have had no intention, but unable to withstand the shyness of the girl's heart. Lin Lunan naturally felt it, but his face pretended that nothing had happened. "Are you okay?" Lu Xiao'e lowered her head and shook it shyly. The cyclist quickly ran over to apologize. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that I hadn't hit anyone. After he left, Lu Xiao'e coquettishly said thank you to Lin Lunan. The Lu family is not far from the Zhengyang Gate. It is a standalone small Western-style building. When Lin Lunan escorted Lu Xiao'e to the door, coincidentally, the door of the Lu family opened and a tall, thin middle-aged man with a dignified face walked out. He gave Lu Xiao'e a somewhat unkind glance, immediately turning his head to look at Lin Lunan. The anger that had been in his eyes dissipated. "How could it be you, Comrade Lu Nan?" Lu Xiao'e, who was originally a bit nervous, suddenly froze. The person who came was none other than Lu Xiao'e's father, Lu Banqing. Lu Xiao'e didn't expect that her father knew Lin Lunan. Mr. Lu, let's say goodbye to Mao Xiong. It's been a long time since we last saw him." Lin Lu smiled and approached, reaching out his hand. Lu Banqing walked up quickly, reached out his hand and clasped it with Lin Nanlu's hand. a look of regret for meeting too late. Lin Lunan and Lu Banqing met at Mao Xiong's house. At that time, Lu Banqing went to study at Mao Xiong's factory. Lin Lunan happened to be one of the translators and team leaders at that time. They got to know each other like this. However, Lu Banqing did not know about Lin Nanlu's return to China as the factory director this time. If he knew, he might be getting closer to Lin Lunando. In the past, Lu Banqing was a shareholder of the predecessor factory of Hongxing steel rolling plant. Later, for some reasons, he gave up his shareholder status, but he is still doing business related to parts processing. These components naturally rely on the Red Star rolling mill. I didn't even know that you had returned to your home country, otherwise I would definitely invite you to my house. It's really a waste of time. Lu Banqing's attitude surprised Lu Xiao'e greatly. She rarely sees her father showing such closeness to a young person. Just now, Lu Xiao'e was worried that her father would come out and tear Lin Lunan apart. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I dare not take it for granted. You are a patriotic businessman. In the future, you will need to help our factory's business a lot. Lu Banqing is one of the few businessmen qualified to do steel business, import and export trade, etc., so Lin Lunan is not wrong in saying so. Lu Banqing was first surprised, and only then did he know from Lu Xiao's mouth, Lin Lunan has actually become the director of the Red Star steel rolling plant. This surprised Lu Banqing greatly. He had received news before. The new director of the Red Star steel rolling plant is a young man. It was personally assigned by the superior. I didn't expect it to be Lin Lunan. Remembering that it was Lin Lunan who brought his daughter back, Lu Banqing's gaze couldn't help but scrutinize back and forth between Lin Lunan and Lu Xiao'e. Suddenly, I felt that my daughter and Lin Lunan might become a good couple. The age difference between the two is not significant, and Lin Lunan's identity is not low either. Having studied at the Mao Xiong family is considered legitimate in this era. In addition, he has also been to the North Pole and has a close relationship with Leader Wu. This is definitely the toughest person in terms of waste. Good, good. Comrade Lao Lunan is taking Xiao'e back this big night. Why don't we go inside and have some tea? Lu Banqing smiled brilliantly, the corners of his mouth almost reaching his ears. His composition is very low in this era, so he has been thinking of finding a support, but there is no suitable one. Only then did I helplessly think of Heyuzhu or Su Damao. However, facing a large supporting mountain that appeared in front of him, where else are Heyuzhu and Su Damao in his mind? Lin Nanlu shook his head. No, I just returned to my home country today and I'm a bit tired, so I won't bother anymore. Lin Lunan refused. Lu Xiao'e is indeed good, in terms of appearance, family background, and cultivation. But Lin Lunan is not considering dating yet. At present, he only wants to develop the Red Star steel rolling plant first. Lu Banqing was not unhappy when he heard these words. It will be a long time. However, Lu Xiao'e was somewhat disappointed. She had been waiting for Lin Lunan to leave, but she still stood in place watching Lin Lunan's back. Lu Banqing looked at his daughter's appearance. I inexplicably looked forward to it in my heart. Perhaps the Lu family's predicament may be relieved by this young man in the future. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.